Hey everybody, welcome to another comic book review video. Today, it's gonna be a little extra long because last week I spent like about an hour, around six takes, going around 20 minutes, and it just wasn't coming out right. So I got a lot of distractions, a lot of interference. My computer actually ran out of battery just as I was doing what I expected to be like the final take. But I was so frustrated and I had been talking for so long, and I said, forget it. I'll just talk about those books from last week in this week's video. So we've got five books to talk about, and one of them, this big stack here, and one of them I actually have a lot to say from this week. So I'll quickly, or as quickly as possible, go through last week's books, which is Green Arrow number 43 and Paper Girls number 23. Um, so Green Arrow number 43. The Benson sisters actually start their run officially. Unofficially, they actually started with the annual from a few months back, but that tied into the whole No Justice miniseries at the same time that it set up at least one plot point for their run, which is actually mentioned in this book as well, but sort of as a subplot. The main plot though focuses on a new villain, a citizen who shows up, sort of like all over the internet, like anonymous, right? Reading some sort of statement of intentions, I guess you could say, denouncing, the top 1%, the rich folks, and the rich people. Uh, so as much as we get a new villain, we also get a new status quo for Green Arrow and Black Canary. So Oliver and Dinah are going to be living together, but not in a plush, penthouse apartment, but in a sort of not the nicest part of town, in a not nice little house there, because Oliver feels that the only way for him to be able to help people is to live with the people. That way he's gonna help them as Oliver Queen, using his money and his resources to sort of help the community, and as Green Arrow, the hero of the people. Um, we actually get a classic team up here with Roy showing up, and working as partners like they used to when they were Green Arrow and Speedy. Also, it seems to deal with some of the fallout from Brotherhood and the Outlaws current story. There's a mention of Sanctuary, sort of teasing and setting up that miniseries coming out next month. Um, we actually get a few callbacks to the old classic Daniel Neil Adams Green Lantern Green Arrow run with this landlord, uh, who is actually bringing up his old buildings to make way for new buildings. Jubal Slade, which showed up way back in 1971, I think it was, in the Green Arrow Green Lantern series. Um, a callback um, to this character here. So that was a nice little detail there as well. So it was a good fun issue, very back to basics. Nothing major. except the fact that Citizen is targeting the rich. He actually kills off uh, Jubal Slade. Uh, he kills them through a voting system that he set up on the internet, asking people, vote if you want him alive or you want him dead. And apparently, the people want him dead. And Black Canary and Green Arrow are too late to save him, and he gets his head chopped up in the guillotine online for millions of people to see. And then Citizen says, that his next target is going to be what Oliver Queen, who he calls a faux philanthropist. So it's sort of like a reversal in a way, whereas Oliver Queen as Green Arrow always shoots to the target, then suddenly he becomes the target. So I love the final page. That this splash, just amazing. As for the art by who did the art here? Javier Fernandez. Javier Fernandez. I'm kind of mixed because it's detailed, but sometimes the detail is not very clear. Sometimes it feels like it was just sort of sketched, sort of fast sketches, not much definition at times. Where he just seems to like draw like faces, trying to make him a little bit different, but they just Black Canaries in some panels he looks kind of off, a little different, sort of like when we get sort of exaggerated you know looks, in this panel here she kind of looks off, and she did look off as well. Let me see, what was it here? She kind of sort of been drawn sort of fast, not too much definition in the art, but no, it's not bad art. It's not my cup of tea. It's something I have to get used to it, used to. Um, Moving on to Paper Girls number 23. Always a hard problem defining this book or talking about this book. But I finally figured out how to sort of touch on some of the important aspects of this very busy issue, because it's split into like three sections, if you will. So on the first part, we've got picks up pretty much where the last issue left off, with KJ and Mac at the hospital, where they hear Mackenzie's voice over the walkie-talkie, and then the Aaron and Tiffany called to them and asked about if they heard any weird voices coming over the walkie-talkies. They say they didn't. So the story sort of goes to KJ finally saying that about her vision of the future, where KJ and Mac are kissing. Mackenzie's reaction is like, "Get away from me, you perv!" It's like she's totally disgusted by that, which is a very normal reaction, especially from a preteen or young teen girl from the 80s as well. It's those little details that sort of ground the story to who these characters are, by giving them the proper context, which also includes the fact that they're using the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as their code names for the whole walkie-talkie thing, which is about right. 88 was like the height of Turtle Mania. When I was living in the States, I was part of it. I watched the cartoon. I got the toys. I even saw the live action movie as well. Anyways, so that's the part where it starts off. They head to the hospital. KJ grabs a scalpel, what I assume is a scalpel, just in case it might be needed. The second part of then we sort of move to that place where the time travelers are coming are headquarters, if you will, and our team is in the past, the day on the day after the whole event from the first issue occurred, where we see that there seems to be some sort of weird anomaly, a sort of weird storm happening here. It's like this thing is just seems to be bringing more creatures or this weird anomaly here. And then we sort of go with Tiffany, future Tiffany, and Aaron heading to where Wari is. And big surprise there, it seems that Aaron mentions it. She does look like, the woman they met, in the prehistoric times. And it seems, and she says something like, Aaron was there the other day, and to be like, what? And then we go back to the hospital where Mac and KJ are demanding that one of the doctors attend to Mac, but he refuses because she doesn't have a chip, and so KJ sort of finally, you can see the sequence, threatens the doctor to actually, bring the whole leukemia cure to, give that leukemia cure to Mac, and she's like, at the end, another really great panel where she just says, badass, and yeah, a lot of stuff is happening in this book. I don't think we're getting any answers by the end of this arc. We might get some answers, but it just keeps building up this mystery, and it almost seems, at times it feels like it might come to an end, but there's like a whole bunch of other stuff that's happening that will continue to drive this story. So who knows how this arc is going to end, and where our characters, our main characters, our protagonists are going to end up by the end of this arc, and what the next arc will bring. So on to today's books. So first off, Action Comics Superman number 2, Superman number 2, which continues the whole, the Earth has been put inside the Phantom Zone. And so for the most part of this issue sort of deals with Superman and the Justice League handling the disasters that, this whole shift into the Phantom Zone have brought to the Earth, but it also seems that it's affecting people. It's affecting the Justice League. They don't seem to feel too well about it. It's got quite a bit of humor as well, actually coming from the Flash. And of course, Raggle Zor is there. There's this great moment here where he's actually looking at Superman from afar. This sequence here, and you can see how his hatred for Superman is growing much more so from a man, from someone who had this general dislike for Kryptonians in general, towards Kryptonians. He has found now his hatred focus on one Kryptonian, the only one it seems that beat him, that it took away his honor. There was Supergirl who actually ended that fight, but just mostly, sort of, exploring the issue. Basically explores, Brawl Zar's experience within the Phantom Zone, as well as, Superman and the Justice League trying to sort of really have bring some order to the chaos that being in the finance mass caused the planet Earth. We get a little, and this has been going on around Twitter for a while, the fact that the nuclear man from the Superman #4, which actually that was the first Superman movie I've ever saw on TV, I want to say, shows up, carrying one of Superman's capes. Rebels are basically just, ends his life. So basically, the character lived and died as he did, as a sort of footnote to Superman history. The art again by Ivan Rice is great, detailed, beautiful art. We seem to know, we also learned that Rebel Czar had something to do with the Tamaranians and the Thanagarians a long time ago, many years ago. Great issue, and of course this is the Mac variant, which I'll probably be getting all of these variants because I really like his David Mack's art a lot. Before we go to the other Superboy that came up this week, that's the one I have a lot to say about. Catwoman #2 by Joel Jones, and Laura Aldred on colors. So last issue, it ended with Catwoman facing off against this bunch of copycats that have been giving, that actually framed Catwoman for a murder, the murder of 2 police officers. We get some really great fight sequences here, by the way. Just really nice fight sequences. So we actually find out that, of course, it was the governor's wife who actually hired all of these copycats, and the fact that this copycat actually killed 2 the 2 officers that she killed were on the take from our main villain, which is the governor's wife, who is really monstrous looking, though she sort of is able to sort of create an image of beauty artificially. Are the ones that she killed, so she wants her get punished. So the doctor that's helping, this doctor that's helping her to look good and giving her a shot and all that stuff, pretty much tortures her and does some terrible things. She's a terrible person as well. So the location where the story takes place, it seems it's in California. As you can see, the governor, it says they're in California. So I suspect that maybe Catwoman lives in a border town. I don't know. It's not very clear exactly. At the same time, Catwoman gets the son of the owners who, I guess, the place she's staying, helping her get some hands on some equipment. So I guess she's really going after the governor's wife, who pretty much set her up by the robbery and the killings and all of that. Uh, she actually goes to this sort of gala here, um, gala, and they are you know introduced to one of the sons, I believe, from the governor's sons as well. Sure, here as well. Right, and we also see the police officer, the captain, the detective, who is after Catwoman. Uh, you know, this character here, who is looking after for Catwoman for the murder of those two police officers, uh, and this other, I guess, detective sort of mentions about him being on the take as well. Like everybody's in this specific police department are on the take, being paid off by the governor's wife, who seems to have a much deeper plan, which involved her husband, the governor, but the governor stepping down. So it seems that that's putting a bit of a bump in her plan. So yeah, very heavy issue, very interesting. A lot of stuff happening as well. Great art, of course, by both the artist and the colorist. So yeah, a lot of very heavy reading, I guess you could say. Okay, so before I start rambling and repeating myself, let's get on to the Supergirl number 21. I actually got the Amanda Connor cover because I didn't find the regular cover, and I much prefer this one, because crypto. I love dogs. I had a dog. She died not too long ago. Uh, but again, the cover is very very cute. So I do have a lot to say about this book. On the one hand, it's not a bad story for what it is. It picks up from the Man of So Many series. Supergirl still dealing with her with the fact that the the death of Candor, that still hurts her. Of course, she is sticking by her decision to go to space and find out more about Rebel. And if it's true that he destroyed Krypton, and if he did, who else knew? Because she feels that there's like a much, much bigger things going on there than just some guy. Somebody just went and destroyed a planet. There had to be people that actually knew about it. So there's some heated words between Supergirl and Superman. But at the end, Superman said, "Okay, fine, you can go to your trip. It just I didn't want to leave because you're the only family I've got left. John and Lois are gone, somewhere in space, which he doesn't know where they are, and of course he lost contact with them when the fortress got destroyed. And so at the end, he supports her decision and sends Krypta to accompany her in her journey. At the same time, we actually learn that there is a much bigger you know, conspiracy going on, if you will. When Supergirl asks, how to scan the symbol in the in Dragon's weapon, uh, we see that this alien creature, which is monitoring many screens, notices that Ragolzar's weapon is being scanned by a Green Lantern, and we actually learned that that information has been redacted from the Green Lantern files. So we actually learned that one of the people who were demanding, though we don't see him, but that were demanding to one of that guardian that probably had some knowledge of what Raul Zar was doing or did to Krypton, could have done, back in Man of Steel, is informed of this, that there's this, I think it's called the Circle, actually, sort of like a cabal, I guess, of powerful beings. Uh, and Gandala, which is one of the many lords from the universe, some of the big, uh, I don't know, lords running around various sectors of space. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, from back in Man of Steel, is informed of this as well, of the whole, of the Green Lanterns showing interest in Dragolzar's weapon, and there is concern about Supergirl, coming too close or close to the truth, that if she did come too close, uh, her life might be forfeit. So they might actually go and try to kill her, because that's what conspiracies, people in conspiracies do. We shut people off from learning anything. And of course, um, so the story by Andreyko is good. Uh, the art by Maguire is phenomenal. I mean, just these wonderful sequences here of storytelling. The whole, I always love these sort of very sequential expression sequences. If any artist can do it, I love them. I love that sort of almost animated uh, sequences. So great story, great art, but a bit of a disappointment as well, because it basically just sort of disregarded the last 20 issues. It basically just was a sweep of everything that came before. We get this one panel, or one page actually, this page here, where she calls the Danvers, Eliza Danvers, to tell her that she was leaving for reasons. She was gonna go away for a while, and that's pretty much it. That was like, we acknowledge her experience with the past 20 issues, we acknowledge her living with the Danvers, and that's it. So in a sense, this book represents this weird trend with Supergirl books, where every time, this really going back much more recently to the New 52, where every new arc, that and any new team that came into the book would shove off, ignore, not mention what happened before, and sort of like a reset. So if Supergirl was in a good place at the end of the previous run, they had to bring her down to a novel place so that they could build her up again and then do it again. A continuous cycle of any time the story progressed, the character progressed, you had to be brought back down to ground zero, almost. Um, and this sort of feels like that that if you that if you really acknowledge that if the writer really acknowledged and HR really cared and acknowledged uh, what Steve Orlando did in the past 20 issues, I think this story would have gone a completely different direction. She has the Danvers as emotional support. She's got Cameron Chase and as well as the DEO as support. So instead of just grabbing some ship, which she does, um, or she grabs some builds a ship, right? She builds a ship or something. Just trying to find that ship. Here we go. She sort of gets this ship she kind of actually built, whereas she could have just gotten a little help from the DEO. So they just come. It focuses on Supergirl, but it sort of ignores everything that came before. That could have, I think, could have been a much better story if it really did focus on what, uh, just picking up where the Orlando run ended with that status quo, and sort of then bring it to add the elements from Man of Steel, and then sort of give it a nice, really nice, clean ending to that and moving it forward instead of just sort of ignoring it. And yes, it focuses on Supergirl, but she's got a life now. She goes to school, she's got a family, she's got a job, she's got friends, and I mean it would be really weird. And of course, they're not gonna touch up on that part, which is going to how people will react when they don't see Kara anymore on at school and at Catco. It just sort of shove it all off. We sort of sweep it under the rug really quickly. We acknowledge it and it's gone. So, you know, that was a bit of a disappointment. I mean, it's a good story, like for what it is as it was set up by Man of Steel, but I really hate when they sort of ignore all of this character development and all of the giving out the previous status a really nice clean ending before moving uh, into the new direction. I think if all of these elements that I mentioned, having the Denver stock, have Supergirl talk to the Denver stock, her situation, they might create a nice, scenes, get the DO to give her a ship. Now that Cameron Chase has retaken the DEO from Bones, and again incorporating elements from the fallout from Man of Steel that we see here. I think it would have been a much better book because again it sort of takes a bit of that sort of development and sort of brings it back down to ground zero just so this generation could come along. And yeah, so I'm repeating myself again. But yeah, so those are the books I got this. So these are the books that I got this week plus last week's books. As always, leave your comments. If you're passing by and haven't subscribed, please do. Uh, I'm on Twitter as well. I always leave my Twitter down at the in the description box as well. As always, I recommend you check out my retro reviews, episode 1, which is where I talk about the Flash number 79, one of my very first comic books. And actually, yeah, one of the first comic books I ever bought. I talk about that book there, with a bit of my 14-year-old perspective, as I remember picking up that book as 14 and the direction I got to it, toward that book. Um, so next week I technically don't have anything. I might want to try, and I might actually see if you know the new one of the new Bendis books is coming out next week. So I'm kind of curious to check it out. I'm not sure I will. Maybe I will, but I probably won't talk about it until, if I do, I'll probably talk about it in the next comic book review video. I am hoping. Uh, so that means next week I will be doing the first episode of the Golden Age Superman feature I announced a while back. So I'm not sure if I'll pre-record it. I won't be doing it today, Saturday. So I'll probably be doing it live on Saturday. Though I might actually, if people want me to do a live stream, I'll probably do the first episode live, or I'll just do a video on Saturday, like I always do when I do this comic book reviews. So it's that first episode. It's gonna be quite long because I'll be dealing with DC's history, the importance of Sigurd and Schuster in the creation of what is today DC Comics, that has really nothing to do with Superman and the whole Superman stuff, the history of Superman. And I'll review Action Comics #1 from 1938. So there's a lot to talk about, so another long video. So as always, until next time, keep smiling.